Hi guys, how are you? Today we're going to talk about REST operator which is added in ES6. First we're going to explain how you can use this REST operator on real-world examples, and then we're going to talk about what is the equivalent way of doing things in ES5. If you aren't yet subscribed, consider to subscribe because I plan a lot of great videos about ES6 and ES5. Thanks for watching. Let's start. Here is our code. We have a function test and which accepts two arguments a and b and then this 3.c. First let's see what is the output of the console log statements. I print three console log statements to have the output on each line, not on the same line. So let's see. We have 1, 2 and 3, 4, 5. Okay, this 1 and 2 is probably clear, or A and B. And what is this 3, 2, 5? Okay, now we think that these 3, 4 and 5 were combined together in a single argument called C. And it's an array. You are right. The REST operator, and the name says also this, is argument for the rest of the is an operator for the rest of the arguments of the function. We define two normal arguments a and b, and the rest arguments are all of them are inside C, which is an array. If we just delete 4 and 5 and leave only 3, we will still have an array which contains only one element, because what this REST operator does, it gives us an array. It actually, no matter what argument is given, we can pass an object, we can pass an array again, which has some number, and we can pass even string. All of them will be in the C argument. So the first is number, second is empty object, third one is array which has 1 inside it, and the last one is test, which is string. So all of them are inside C argument. It's really useful when you don't know how many arguments your function is gonna accept. So let's see a real-world example. Imagine that we are adding a user, which takes username, age, for example, and interest categories. Let me zoom out or okay, yeah, interest categories. Okay, we don't know beforehand how many interest categories the user can have. The user may have. So let me print all of them. Username, age, interest categories. So later in the code I can use add user John 26 and interest categories like programming, football, music. So these programming, football and music will be gathered in single argument interest categories. Here they are. Of course we can do this in a different way. We can, in normal, without the REST operator, we can have an array here and we just delete these 3 dots and we have the same output. So username, age, and the third interest categories argument is an array because we pass it an array. But that's the behavior of the REST argument, that it takes the rest of the arguments and combines it into an array. At some point, you have an array of interest categories and you can pass it as an array, but at some point you need to pass it as a single argument like this is done here. Okay, let's see how we can do the same thing in ES5. So we need output John 26 and this array which has programming, football and music. Okay, we need to call our method in exactly the same way as we're doing here, but we need to change our function declaration so that we don't use these 3 dots and we don't use this rest operator. Okay, in ES5 we have a keyword inside function which is called arguments. Let's print arguments and see what it is. Arguments is an object. It's an array-like object. It's not an array, but it's an array-like object, meaning that it has indices and all past arguments are inside arguments keyword. 0 argument is John, first argument is 26, and so on. So what we can do here is we can accept directly username and age, which are John and John 26. Okay, but from these arguments keyword we need only second, third and fourth arguments, programming, music and football. So we need to extract these 3 arguments from the arguments keyword. As far as arguments is not an array, it's an array-like object. Arguments doesn't have array methods. But inside array prototype, there is a method called splice. You can find the documentation in developer Mozilla.org, and the splice method changes the content of an array by removing existing elements or adding new elements. If you are removing these existing elements, the removed elements are returned. So in the following example, the first argument is the index at which index you want to remove or add new elements. The second argument is how many elements you want to remove. In this case, we don't remove anything. And the third and the rest arguments are the new elements which you want to insert at position 1. So the output of the following code is January, and the February is added between January and March, and then March, April and June. So we actually didn't remove anything, but we added a new argument at position 1, which was here. So in our case, we don't want to add anything inside arguments. Instead, we want to remove second, third, and fourth arguments by indices. So in this case, we want to remove third, fourth, and fifth arguments. Okay, what we do here? We take our array prototype splice method and we call it on arguments object. Now we're going to pass arguments what are required to the splice method. We don't want to remove first and second arguments, John and 26, so we'll leave it as it is. But instead, we want to remove arguments from index 2. From index 2, we want to remove 3 arguments, and we don't add anything. If we want to add something inside arguments, we could write here. But we don't want to add something. Instead, from second index, here's our arguments. From second index, we want to remove 3 arguments, programming football and music, and return them. Splice returns them automatically, so we're gonna save them somewhere. So let args or let interest categories is our splice call arguments 2 and 3. So let's print these interest categories. Okay, yeah, we have John 26, which is username and age. Then we print arguments, which we don't care anymore. Let me remove it. We have John 26, and we have programming, football, and music, which is now array. Array prototype splice, which we called on arguments object, returned new array, removed all elements from arguments object. Let's print now our arguments object. Our arguments object has only 0 and first element because this removed elements from second index 3 elements. If we remove this 3 here, this means that remove all elements from starting 2. In this case, we don't have more elements, so this will remove everything, and this is exactly what we need. If we leave it here 3 and we add another category here, like swimming, this will only return 3 categories because we are removing 3 elements. But as far as we don't know how many interest categories will be passed to the function, we are going to remove this 3 and leave it empty, meaning that we want to remove every argument, every given argument from this arguments keyword from starting 2. Let me save the code, let me remove these arguments, and let's see output. The output is exactly what we wanted. We have age, we have username, and we have our interest categories, which is the rest of the arguments. This is the equivalent of the ES6 version of the rest operator. So if we remove this line, we have the same output. So instead of this in ES5, we write this. One difference is that we can add another argument here. So if we have this code which takes everything, which removes from argument keyword everything from starting index 2, if we add something here like email, so and we pass email here, john@example.com, so we don't have exactly the output what we wanted. So yeah, first of all I want to remove this. So here we have email also inside my arguments, because here I still have 2. I remove all arguments from starting second index. So this removed email also from arguments and returned it also. So my interest categories is this, which is wrong, of course. So if I add another named argument here, email, I have to change this also to 3. And now I have the output what I wanted. Of course, the REST operator is much more easy to use. It's much more clear, much more powerful, because you don't have to write this longer code and you don't have to write this start index number every time you add or remove arguments from here, username or age. That's all about REST argument. I hope you like the video. I hope you understand how you can do the same thing in ES5. I really appreciate if you leave comments below what you think about my videos. If you don't understand some things like what is this line, for example, you can also leave comments below about this. Thanks for watching. See you in the next time.